The Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast is dedicated to all things Horus Heresy. This podcast delves into the grimdark universe where Primarchs clash, legions rise, and loyalties fracture faster than a Land Raider's track. But it's not just about the lore of the Horus Heresy. The Accountabilibuddies also explore the gaming side of things, from painting and modeling tips to product reviews and ideas to help you in your hobby. So, whether you're a seasoned Forge World veteran or a fresh-faced scout, this podcast is your Vox channel to the galaxy. Expect discussions on lore, modeling, gaming, and maybe even the shenanigans that your hosts somehow seem to find their way into. Remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there are only two things you can count on: heresy and your trusty Accountabilibuddies.
Hello, everybody listening, and welcome to the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast, episode 77. I am Duncan, one of your hosts, and tonight I am joined by...
Fran. Dan.
Jack.
Jamie.
And John.
And we're glad to have you here, listeners. Today we have a very, very wonderful episode ready for you all to listen to. We are going to be going over the Beta Garmon book and the new releases. But before we do that, we're going to have a quick pause for our sponsors.
Do you love resin bases? Then go to our sponsor, Elric Hobbies, for all of your basing and basing accessory needs. Use code HeresyABB at checkout for a discount. Legendary Monument Hobbies. Monument Hobbies is a one-stop shop for all of your painting needs. Use code HeresyABB at checkout for a 5% discount on your purchase. Pop Goes the Monkey. Find maker of third-party accessory bits of arms, legs, backpacks, and more, where you can get 10% off your first order over $125 with code HeresyABB at checkout.
And welcome back, everybody. So, as is our tradition, John, what hobby stuff have you done lately?
Well, I got the new Beta Garmon book, and there's an entry there for some Scout Sentinels, and I think I'm going to try out that unit for Cobra. And a while ago, I'd found this pretty cool Hiss tank that's about the right scale. Hisses were never really that big. They're just kind of a two-man tank that has a laser cannon on top, and I figured that'd be good for that Scout Sentinel. So before they decided to go up in price like every other toy I use as the basis for a conversion, I went ahead and ordered enough to make 2 squads of them off Amazon this week, on top of spending our Wednesday night hobby hangout, hump day hobby hangout, building sergeants for my 2 Nemesis squads for Ultramarines. And worked with some local guys to try to get me some more heads to finish off the second Nemesis squad, since I found out I only have enough heads for one. And then started getting the bits together and started cleaning those up for other ones. And then I ordered some hobby tools that we'll talk about a little bit later as well. I got a wet palette from China, and then some new clippers from Amazon that I'll talk about a little bit later. Duncan, I know you're our host, so I'm going to go on to Jamie. Jamie, what did you do?
Thanks, Don. I was really bad this week. I've had life interrupting everything, and really all I have done is on our hobby hangout Wednesday night, I worked on some, a little bit more on some saber tanks. Also still unpacking stuff and trying to organize stuff from Adepticon, which that should tell you something. And then I helped my son start clipping mini tanks for that Clash of Steel game that we got like a bunch of copies of at Adepticon. He's really into the unfortunately the Soviet era tanks. So I was helping him with those, and then I've had soccer tournament stuff all week long that I've just really taken a toll on my hobby. And I got the Beta Garmon book and I've started skimming it, but I really haven't been able to dive into it very deep because of that. So I will pass it on to Dan.
No, let's see. I finished up, except for clear coating, the rest of the little tiny Gloomhaven dudes I've been working on I'm getting close to finishing up the Massive Darkness models I was working on. Put some more details on some ISS Vanguard models I've been working on. And then I spent the hobby hangout going through the a couple of the lore books, the original black books, looking at a system that Duncan is suggesting maybe we're going to use for our campaign. So I basically just spent a bunch of time doing research there. And then I did skim through the whole book, the new book I managed to get from my game store yesterday. So I was trying to read through and understand that. I don't know. Some of the stuff my brain didn't quite comprehend right, but that's probably just me. So I guess next we'll move on to Jack.
Howdy, hobby viewers. This is Jack speaking. My hobby progress this week was going to school to learn how to speak on a radio. I'm kidding. That's not what I did this weekend. I've continued to put together more dudes. Currently, I am sitting on, because I don't remember what I did before last show, 15 Mark IIs, 30 Mark IIIs, 30 Mark IVs, 20. 20 Mark IIIs, 20 Mark IVs, 20 Mark Vs. I have to put together 20 Mark VIs. I've put together 10 missile launchers, dude. I have a Mark II, a Mark III, Mark III and Mark IV command squad I put together. I have put together various and sundry one-off kits that I've had, like Exodus, and I have Con lying around ready to be put together. And then I am going to start the biggest infantry batch painting ever, probably next to John, because I'll have 100 infantry after I'm done to put together and paint and get knocked out, hopefully before, I think a realistic is probably before end of August, and that will put me at having a lion's share of the remainder of the Ultramarines done. I did add up the points for that army, and that army is now ridiculous at this point. So Brian, what have you been doing?
I have been continuing progress on all-terrain projects, new and old. I got 2 crashed Valkyries, 2 Hydroflak platforms in the emplacement, some various generators and consoles that Forge World used to make for added detail to Zone Mortalis boards. I also got some Alpha Legion reinforcements in that are still in need of assembly. Parts to make a Durac Rask, I think, the Siegebreaker named character for the Death Guard. Painted, other than a couple of details, I believe it was around 80 of the Nachmund wall sections that I got from the Michigan GT last year. I did half of them in a red color and half of them in a beige, brown, gray color. And I think there's some other stuff I painted that I'm drawing a blank on. But yeah, just making forward progress.
Well, I guess I'll go last since that's up to me. This week I have finished the base coat and zenithal highlighting for my Sons of Horus Legion champion that I'm building. And that is all, other than reading through Beta Garmon this weekend and trying to figure out exactly what all is going on there, because there's a lot of confusion in some ways. And I got somewhat bogged down in it and lost myself a couple of different places, but trying to pay attention to everything and take notes and get a clean understanding has been a little bit difficult for my brain. But I think that's just the fact of me getting old. So that's all I've done. John, what all's come out this week for pre-order or interesting orders for Heresy that we're all talking about and thinking about?
Well, this week on pre-order, we've got a couple of things that are not Heresy, but we can use them, and then a few things that are. So first up, the Custodes are getting a 40K launch. Those boxes really aren't helpful, but there's a really cool dice set that they're getting that might work good for Heresy. There's also the Ball Predator upgrade pack and the Armory of the Blood Angels upgrade pack that we discussed not that long ago are finally getting released. And then Heresy Thursday had Little Horus finally get revealed. Definitely a freaky face on that guy, which makes sense because he got his face cut off by Hibben. So all in all, it's a really cool character. He shares a lot of pose with the other Sons of Horus that came out a few weeks ago, but I definitely like the way he looks. He's kind of regal without being overly chaosy.
Yes, I like that model. I'm going to buy it. I definitely think it looks really good for the Sons of Horus. I got a bit of an issue with his stat line and his gear in there, but I'll come to that later when we talk about him. But yeah, I'm going to buy the guy. Probably two. One to have him and then one to parts out into bits for other guys.
Yeah, the other thing that dropped this week, it's coming out this week, it was the kill team of Night Lords for 40K kill team. There's a bunch of really cool parts to steal from there.
Yep.
To put on all your stuff.
Very cool. It's a very cool kit.
And then the Wicked Brick Warhammer display cases finally got released. These are little acrylic display stands and plaques that you can put in the display stands and on your shelves. The plaques come with Ultramarine, Salamanders, Fists, Dark Angels, or Blood Angels. And then there's also Space Wolves and just Lionel Johnson himself that are coming out later. The display cases are little acrylic racks that are held together with magnets. They come one figure sized or a squad sized, or they call it Endless War size, which is basically a squad and a dreadnought sized. They're interesting in the fact that they've got the pre-printed GW stuff and there's some neat artwork on them, but they are not cheap. They're $80 to $109 for the dreadnought sized one, or $23 to $30 for a single figure sized one. So you can get those on wickedbrick.com, which is odd that GW's teaming up with them, but whatever. So that's really all I've seen coming out from the third party and from GW this week.
Oh, there was a leak supposedly of some new Joy Toy. No, I was gonna say there's some new Joy Toy stuff that's supposed to be coming out for White Scars and Imperial Fist, White Scars, Imperial Fist, but it's like a new assortment of Heresy figures coming out, like in the Joy Toy scales for the non-pours.
There was also a supposed leak for the McFarlane scale stuff. We're getting a Kasserken and some other figures through that. That looks pretty neat too. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not a lot coming this week since we got the book this week, and then there's not a lot of secrets coming out either.
Someone did show me something about a repaint, I believe maybe it was. I'm not 100% certain on the larger scale Space Marines in Iron Warriors. Did you see that, John? Or were you the one who sent that to me?
Yeah, I sent that to you. So that's a Target exclusive figure that's coming out. And right. So what they do is they do what they call gold line series figures, and they do normal line series figures. The gold ones are usually going to be a little more limited edition. They're stuck to like one store. They're usually a little more expensive. They come with like an extra accessory or two, and they have a little bit of weathering on them. And so that's the McFarlane figures are the ones that are roughly the size of the old McFarlane Spawn toys. They're about 8 to 10 inches tall. We've seen Terminators come out with that. We've seen a bunch of different Mark 10 and other 40K types of
They've
armor.
had a lot of 40K stuff.
And orcs, yeah, and orcs and Darktide also had a big release of that too.
Yeah. And they've actually even had those in the GW stores too, like actually like in person in the GW stores. So
yeah, the only thing is that the GW stores won't get those gold line ones. Those will be exclusive to whatever store that is. So in this instance, the Iron Warrior will be exclusive to Target.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess I have to go to Target, the great French store, to get one.
Target.
Okay. Is that really all that we've got coming out right now that's been announced or been talked about?
Yeah, it's pretty thin.
Okay.
Yeah, the big hullabaloo's the Age of Sigmar stuff that got squatted.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I just don't really want to go into it, but that's what a lot of the that and there's some big stuff going on with like BattleTech with the Kickstarter that I just don't want to go into either.
The only thing I have to say about the Age of Sigmar stuff is remember they're your toys. You can play with them however you want.
Yep.
I tangentially to all this, I was wondering how many people ordered the book from GW and have gotten it yet versus not.
Well, obviously,
copy through GW, and GW has a really bad problem. Is if you order it to yourself, they don't ship it. They don't start shipping it until the day of release.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have no clue when I'll get the book. Probably sometime late next week or week after. Right now is probably how it's going to work. And so I was able to get one at my friendly game store, and I'll probably just return the one to GW once it finally gets here.
I was very lucky in that I also ordered one for myself from our wonderful GW store. And it has not arrived. I ordered it online, and it'll be here whenever the post office gods allow it to. So we'll see. But I did magically manage to acquire a digital copy for myself as well. So
I was gonna say I have a digital copy.
Yes.
Yeah, I
think most of us have that one.
I messaged my non-GW local game store last week. It might have been when we were talking about it. It was either Sunday when we were recording or Wednesday when we were talking about it on the podcast. And I messaged them and they're like, "Okay, we've ordered. I'll set one aside for you." And I know they had 2 racks of it looked like 5 or 6 sitting on the shelf, and there were 2 or 3 other ones that were still behind the counter reserved, and I didn't go around the corner to see how many more they had. So it seems like at least the game stores got their copies pretty easily this time, and it was not GW store only like the last campaign book was. So that's an improvement. I don't know if they listen to us or just realize they could sell more, but
I don't really know. All I know is that I am very grateful for the fact that I have a digital to tide me over until I acquire my hardback version.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. But with everything at this point gone over, I think it's time for us to turn to Beta Garmon, gentlemen, and start giving this a fairly deep dive. Before we get too into this, I want to preface this by saying, as of right now, every single member of the cast who's here recording today does have a copy of this book digitally. And we all are sitting here looking at this and going over this and have, for the most part, reviewed bits of it to some various levels of depth. So, going into this, before we start digging into the depths of it, guys, comparing this overall, before we start doing our individual bits going into it, what are your thoughts on this book, preliminary, looking at it from what you've looked at? Where do you think this book rates on an A through F scale?
Pretty high for me.
I'm sorry, Brian, say again?
It rates pretty high for me.
Okay.
I don't think anything was overly done. The Black Shield rules in particular look fun and interesting. Haven't dug through them enough to see anything too out of whack, but the way the army works now is you just take oaths instead of rights of war, and that affects your army. And other than that, you use the regular army list. So,
Okay.
not as wild as it used to be back in 1.0.
That's fair. That's fair. Jack, what do you think so far about it? Before we go into it too deep.
I know me and you've talked about it.
We did. We talked about this last night.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I dug into one specific section of this book. And it was not what I wanted. That being said, taking time and perspective on it, I understand the reason for it not being what I wanted. But I think what they put together for that section, I'm speaking of the Shattered Legions for people who have not heard me whining about this for the last 2 years. I understand, why it's set up the way it is. I think it has the ability to be very strong. Not going into any detail yet. But I give it a solid B for what I've seen so far. Like, I flipped through the other stuff, so solid B.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I think a B is good. I think some of the new units, specifically the Solar Aux Command Squad, is something that was needed as before, but yet again, it's another way that they have. There's nothing in there to help night fight, or anything like that. Some of the issues that Solar Aux had to begin with doesn't really fix any of those problems. It's just fills a gap that wasn't real. It was a gap in unit choice, not a gap in gameplay, if that makes sense.
It does.
And
okay.
I think the Sentinels can be interesting. The Heavy Sentinel has problems by itself. I don't know about the Recon Company. I haven't thought enough about that. The Light Sentinel replacing a squad of Velitarius in a Tertio is interesting, especially if you get those to shoot back. And then the generic Marine choices were a little interesting. The fact that the Solar Aux get completely different rules than the Militia do if you take them with the Apate is a little odd to me. And the fact that the Apate has to pay extra points for a Maul for no reason seems a little odd to me as well. And then what was the other one's name? Sorry, the console. The company command squad looks pretty interesting, where it's a command squad that can be taken by a console. I kind of like that. That one, to me, has a lot of different choices in there. So you could build a whole sniper squad of Nemesis Bolter command squads, or you could build all Lightning Claws. It's got two different company standards. I think that's a really interesting squad that gives a lot of customizability to you. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things. There's good and bad in there, in my opinion. I think a B is good. I feel like that they could have done a lot better, but they could have done a lot worse.
Okay. Jamie, you already told us before we start recording you haven't really had a chance to look at it, so
yeah, it wouldn't be fair for me to give it a grade right now.
That's fair. Dan, your thoughts?
So I'm going to preface this by saying that none of the Black Shields and Shattered Legion stuff, between the lore and the rules and the path, had ever really driven me a lot of interest in making an army. So I come into this without any preconceived ideas of what I want to do with the rules. And given that, I give the book probably a C, and maybe a C at best. And I'm going to say that scanning through everything, looking at it, the lore and stuff behind Black Shields and Shattered Legions is cool. The combination of the lore and the rules still haven't drawn me into anything right away where I'm like digging into the reading and saying I want to read this. I think the campaign stuff is not different enough than what we already had. So it's like that whole chunk just feels like a rehash with like 1 or 2 pages of new things in there that just didn't do a lot for me in that regard.
Okay.
And then I think they missed some or at least one opportunity for me. And as a Ultramarine player, which a number of us are, they had the Virgil Aperte, I think it was, Rite of War in the first edition of Horus Heresy. And it kind of went away, and they have now full-on Solar Ox rules. And they have the Solar Ox aligned with the Ultramarine, but it still doesn't fill in and give me enough flavor to think that I get the feeling of how that was in the lore where they were training up the militia of Solar Ox folks to really work in tandem with Ultramarines and be a full-on cohesive battle force with a combination. So, I think there's a myth there. I don't know. I just for someone who's not going to jump in and make an army on this right away, it just doesn't seem like there's enough stuff there for me new.
That Rite of War before, Dan, was more for the Ultramarine secret police that were on McCrae. So this is less that, and I think this is more Ultramarines like allying with them. So the Ultramarines bonus that you get with Solar Ox in this, I think is pretty interesting. It basically makes shooting reactions be snapshots, which is pretty interesting. But you've also got the Ultramarines doctrine that's built into the Solar Ox themselves, where if they stand in base to base, they get bonuses to shooting.
I guess maybe some of it is I've been reading on Dolar a lot lately, and so the Virgil Aperte Rite of War really was his thing, and him training up the militia to be that police force, and it just didn't give me the flavor of what I was looking for. Maybe that's like Jack, maybe that's just me and what I was looking for. I'm not saying what they've got going on with Ultramarines is bad. It just didn't feed into kind of what I was told. That was the one thing. But I don't think it's bad. I like different and more campaign series, and I would have liked to see more built into that new than I think is there. And I admit I didn't pull out the last campaign book and compare rules for rules, but just skimming through and reading through it, it's like, well, this is all the same except for these couple of pages. And so I don't know. I'm not upset I bought the book. It's all the lore stuff, all the color palettes. It's the same quality book we're used to getting for this $55, $60 price range book. That part of it is good. I'm not disappointed. I'm just it doesn't throw me into anything as far as wanting to hobby or do anything new as far as building a list or anything, and that's kind of where it falls for me at in that kind of middle of the ground fee range. I think it's good that other people have it. The one other thing that I think that we'll probably touch on a lot more when we get into the Shattered Legion stuff is that there's a whole lot of opportunity for that, and I'm not worried about the min-maxing side of things because people are going to do that and they aren't, and we talk about that all along about the social contract and everything. But I think it's going to have a tendency to want to bog games down at times in how the rule interactions work with Shattered Legions, and that also kind of will be interesting to see how that plays out on the tabletop in the long run.
Right. Thanks, Dan. Well, I'm pulling my copy up here. Obviously, we're not going to look too much into the fluff here, because while the fluff is fun and there's a lot of good fluff in here, we're mostly going to be looking at the gameplay aspects of it. So we've got the campaign itself, which Dan just talked on a little bit, that he wasn't all that happy with, that I'm personally really happy with because it's got the updated version of the Onslaught campaign system and it's got the Bulwark campaign. And those two have very different ways of actually interacting with everything. because it's not just the battle resolution, it's not just the who gets the most wins, but this brought in different types of things beyond the standard campaign stratagems. This brought in things like you could have these are specifically linked to the Garmon Bulwark campaign. Like there's the March of the Angel, where if specifically the Blood Angel armies are doing this and are doing well versus doing poorly, it can actually affect what side's actually going to be getting more points here or more points there. And it actually does have the ability to go negative points. So tuning armies and playing armies versus other armies in this, I think it's going to be very different because it allows you to have more control over how the campaign as a whole is going, while also letting each battle be more decisive for playing in the campaign. And that right there gives different stratagems and everything, gives more, I think, more player agency and can lead to more customization for other players to do the same thing and come up with other ones as ideas based on these for building your own campaign. And that, for me, is a huge part on this, is why I think this is a great book. And my current rating, other than a few minor quibbles for the book, is actually an A-. There's a few bits and pieces I think could have been done with a little bit differently, but yeah, I'm a big fan on this book. Skipping past all the campaign stuff, going beyond that, we've got the new core missions that are in here that are updating on how you can play the game and giving you more mission types. Although they really only stick with 3 types of deployment here. Obviously, you can go with regular other types of deployment from the main book. But these new missions here are pretty nice. The Apex missions themselves, I really like. Has anyone other than me looked at the Apex missions?
Negative, Ghost Rider.
On units.
Okay, well, there are, I believe it's 3? No. 2? Yeah, there's 2 different Apex missions. Yeah, there's 2 different Apex missions. One's called Clash Atop the Gal Zamred, which is supposed to be Jagatai Khan trying to confront Horus. And it's basically kind of a king of the hill and taking the head of the enemy leader. It's different. It's you're basically trying to control the center while trying to kill the enemy warlord at the same time. And your warlord's supposed to be a Primarch. And if the enemy's Primarch loses their last wound, then you make him an objective, and then your people have Fearless Fall around him, trying to recover him, trying to help him, heal him. It's thematic. It's thematic as hell. I really like the idea on it. Did anybody look at the second mission, or am I on that one too?
Negative, Ghost
So
Rider.
I did look at the second one because I really like the I guess you call them terrain rules or mission special rules, the blasted minefield and the corpse strewn on this one.
The Fields of the Dead one?
Yeah, there's chances anywhere you move that it can be a minefield and take hits for pulling at the mine. And then because there's been so much battle that there's so many corpses on the field, you add or you subtract 2 from all your charge distances. And then with the blasted minefield, they suffer a -1 penalty to your leadership for every time you lose dudes to the mines.
Yep.
I thought that was a really cool and thematic setup for it. Could be used for lots of missions, right? Not just this one, but.
And I think using those special rules could kind of actually make for a little bit more fun if you sit there and you have units like tanks with dozer blades. I think that could make things even more interesting if people sit there and write a little bit into it. It's I get what you're talking about, where it's having fun with terrain, and I think it's going to be definitely a unique way of getting into the game and looking at it.
Go back to the regular missions real quick.
Yes, please do.
I did read through those a little bit earlier today while I was at work, and the biggest takeaway I had was the fact that they reduced the deployment zones down to two: Dawn of War, Seek and Destroy, and Hammer and Anvil, which we discussed briefly. The big thing I noticed was that they have changed scoring quite a bit and kind of embraced more in line with what Goonhammer did for their mission packet they put out a year and a half ago, where you typically will score later in the game, like at the end of your turn, and you can't score turn one. That I thought was an interesting change. And the fact that they're keeping to running missions only 4 turns long
Yeah.
is a recurring theme.
And it didn't give options in any of those missions to have a 5th turn optional. It was just a flat 4 turns.
But there is a campaign element that you can force a 5th turn in the campaign system. I did see that earlier. So that's kind of an interesting take.
Yeah, so for campaigns, you can have that. But for standalone games, I'm personally really liking the idea of 4 turns more than 5 in this edition, honestly. That's just me.
we've had our discussions about it before. It definitely hurts close combat exclusive armies
It
that
does.
have to come in from reserves, drop pod armies, things like that.
It does,
It
but
very much hurts flyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I at Adepticon, 2 games my Thunderbolts didn't come in at all.
Ooh, that hurts.
Yep.
Well, that's the campaign missions in a nutshell. If people want us to go into that depth more, we can. But I don't think we really need to at this point. Anybody? No? Good. Jack, Shattered Legions. You're the expert there, brother. Take it away.
Oh, I hate being called an expert in anything. Last edition.
Hey, you're the inexpert.
There we go. Inexpert. Last edition, the Shattered Legions was, put it in a nutshell, you could unlock legions if you had that legion in an HQ slot. So if you had a Alpha Legion HQ and an Iron Warriors HQ, you could run anything from their booklet of toys. A little bit different in this one. There is no way possible for anybody to do a deep dive in this, talking about all the possibilities you can do. In this edition, basically you pick 2 to 3 different legions, and those legions have to be shown in your army. So you have a 10-man squad. You have three different legions you're pulling from. You have to in your one squad you have to have members from Legion A, Legion B, and Legion C. And depending on how many of those you have certain traits that you can do. You have minor and major, and you have flaws. I'm not going to read you all the rules line by line. But basically, depending on your makeup, you gain certain benefits, and you have certain flaws or minor traits. Some of the minor traits really aren't that minor. Some of the major traits, in my opinion, really aren't that major. Your HQ can have hero, but the big thing that I was looking for that made me sad was that you can no longer have specialty units in there. With Shattered Legions, you can only pull from
the base army lists.
You can only pull from units that have like Space Marine /X. I mean Legion Astartes /X. So you can't have any Legion specific units like you did in the last one. There is a way around that, where basically if you can pull that unit in as like a retinue or something special like that, you can pull it in that way. But looking through, that's locked down on a lot of the things that I was looking for. One of the good things that you can do is Legion veteran squads can be selected as troops and gain the line unit subtype. So that's good. And then a weird one is any unit with the special rule that selects a dedicated transport gains the support squad rule. Okay. And then every single legion in here has the major, minor, and flaw traits. They're referred to as mutable tactics. And then your HQ, like I said, has a hero trait that they can pull from. And it's really like, it says that you'll need a cheat card for this. I firmly believe the first 3 or 4 games you'll need a cheat card for it, and then after that you're going to be handing the cheat card over to your opponent so that they understand it. Because I don't think I feel like there's not a lot of moving parts in this army. But I can see if somebody has never touched it before or looked at the rules, how it could be very confusing about
I agree.
it.
And especially considering the fact that you decide the vast majority of the time the members of the squad you're removing as casualties, you're always going to be able to float the flaw traits
right
the direction you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to say a lot of the flaws that I read through really don't seem like flaws.
Yeah.
I will say there are some of the flaws that are actually, honestly, in this edition, kind of terrible or painful. The Dark Angel one specifically, where you reduce the leadership characteristic of the unit by 1 if they have a Dark Angel in it. That one's kind of a nasty one.
But who wants to play
and
Dark
Angels? It's also
Angels?
the first one to lead off with. Yeah, I know. That's a reasonable statement right there.
Like one of the.
I don't know. I thought they all seemed. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
I thought they all seemed reasonably penalizing. I mean, fifth, you have to make a reaction if you're able to, if someone triggers it, right? If you go to make a charge, you have to make a leadership test or it's disordered. I know leadership tests are easy a lot of times, but they get failed. Can't declare a charge unless you outnumber your enemy. There's a lot of these that really are flavorful and really a flaw.
But the major, the big thing that you get from it though is so good most of the time that flaw isn't a flaw. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I agree there. I think the flaws, as Dan said, they're flavorful for the actual units and the actual legions. And I'll absolutely say that they're there. Mm-hmm. And they are some of them are kind of painful. Yeah, well, but they're not really game-breaking.
No, I feel like the best flaw that you have out of all of these is the Alpha Legion flaw. Because it makes you take all the other models versus your Alpha Legion.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great flaw.
Yeah,
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. But if somebody tries to tell you that they know the ins and out and everything on here in the next couple of weeks, they're full of it, or they just live in this book. The big takeaways that I want people to have is that this is going to be very fun to play for you. It's your responsibility to make the person on the other side of the table you make sure they have fun with this.
Yeah, that's absolutely something.
That's the biggest thing that people need to take away from this.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a new way of playing armies that are of combined forces. It's going to be different for your opponent. You do your hobby the way you want to. You play your games in a fun manner. You'll have fun. Your opponent will have fun. Just remember, while you may understand the rules and how this all interacts and works, most people who are going to be playing against it, they're not going to understand it very well. So you might need to help them a little bit. Number 1 rule, don't be a dick. I think it sums it up.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's going to be too easy for people to do is fall back to, okay, well, this is an Emperor's Children unit, so I get my Emperor's Children stuff. And you don't, right?
No,
you only get the...
Correct. You do not. And I think that's something that really needs to be remembered by the players.
Yeah. So that's one that's going to be really hard. at Adepticon, we were playing Zone Mortalis, and we weren't paying attention, and someone took a full-on shooting Overwatch reaction against me and took a unit out, and it's like, that's completely wrong. We need to remember special rules. I think in the same way, you need to remember,
Wasn't that also in the game where everybody who's drunk is all get out?
It was.
Okay, so as long as you're not too very drunk, you can remember your rules and remember how the game works. It's not a big thing.
I think there's just going to be a tendency that everybody knows what the normal rules are, and I have to remember, well, these don't apply. I only get these mutable tactic rolls. That's all.
Yeah, no, I get that. Jack, anything else on them?
The big, the other thing that it points out in the rules is that you have to have your units marked for the legion that they're from. Trying to find the exact wording right now, but basically you can't have a blue salamander, space marine. If you have a ultramarines, it has to be painted like a ultramarines. It cannot be painted like anything else.
So it actually encourages you to actually make your units WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get.
If any model does not,
I'll read it.
If any model does not clearly display iconography or colors that obviously identify it as a single or specific legion, then it represents no legion is not counting for determining majority or minority of the units. See page 135, so on and so forth.
Okay.
So, paint
and
stuff.
where can you find that in the book?
That is on page 134.
Okay.
It's like the very beginning of the setting up Shattered Legions attachments.
Okay, so that just right there seems good to me because it's going to be something that's encouraging people that are going to be playing these to actually paint their models in this manner.
Mm.
I mean, if you want it to be a salamander, it's got to be painted as a salamander. You want this guy to be an Iron Hand, he's got to be painted as an Iron Hand. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. Just more encouraging people to put effort into their hobby so that everything can be fun. I like that idea. I really do.
It also says that if you take 3 legions, and as long as your unit has 3 or more models, you have to have each legion represented. If you have 2 legions,
right,
as long as you have 2 or more models, then you have to have both legions represented. So there's no teasing that part of it out either. You gotta mix
okay, so
up.
if I've got an army of, say, Iron Warriors, Sons of Horus, and World Eaters, and I've got a 10-man squad, and I want the primary to be World Eaters, I can have 5 World Eaters, 2 Iron Warriors, and then 3 Sons of Horus. But it doesn't restrict me from having to have 3, 3, and 3, and then a 1, right?
You have to have representation Legion A, Legion B, and Legion C.
You could have 8, 1, and 1 to start, but you have to at least have 8, 1, and 1 if you're playing 3 legions. But things like if you're pulling a Contemptor in, you got to have a Contemptor from each legion, right? Or thinking something like
no,
got bikes or something that's like unit of 3.
So if it's a unit of 3, then I have to have 1, 1, and 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. And so you would calculate the majority based purely on how many models are remaining. And then the minority would be based on whichever of the next legion has more, I guess. And the 2 can change based on how many guys from whatever legion are remaining in the unit. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And
I absolutely think this is wonderful.
Yep. So
there's definitely, like you said, there's definitely a lot of hobby potential and a lot of people will have cool ideas that they can put down on the table. As long as people are doing what we normally do and setting up that way and not just trying to min-max it all, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, so this is, again, just me trying to understand, because like I said, I haven't dug into this very much. So say my unit of the 10 guys, the World Eaters, Iron Warriors, and Sons of Horus. So I get the major ability or bonus from the World Eaters, and then do I get both the minor abilities from the Sons of Horus and the Iron Warriors, or do I only get one based on whoever's more?
You pick the minor. If it's tied
Okay.
for whatever reason, you get to pick which one you want to use.
Okay. And what about the flaw? Do I get from all of them, or one or two?
The flaw is
From the Legion with the minority.
yep,
Okay, so I don't get the flaw from the Legion with the majority, and I don't get to suffer both of them, right?
right.
I just get one.
Yes.
Okay. That again, that makes sense. It's. I think it's fun. I think it's fluffy. I like this.
So, do you want to take us into Shattered Legion, sir? Not Shattered Legion, Black Shields?
I think I could do that. So, Black Shields. Obviously, Black Shields are Marines, but they're not Marines tied to any specific Legion. They could have come from wherever. They could have been whatever, whenever, however, whoever. But now they don't believe in anything or anybody as their declared allegiance. They come with two base rules. Three. Beholden to none. When included in the army as primary detachment, models with this special rule are counted as having both loyalist and traitor allegiances by any special rule that targets allegiance. So if you're going up against Bob, and Bob's warlord trait says when attacking models with the traitor allegiance, you get +1 to hit. Even if you're on the loyalist side in this game, he still gets +1 to hit because you get affected by both. It also says that, however, when included as an allied detachment or other non-primary detachment, models with these rules only are considered to have the same legion as the primary detachment. Additionally, Black Shield detachment is always counted as distrusted allies to any other faction and counts all other factions as distrusted allies. It's because no one knows who they really are. No one knows their bona fides, and they don't trust anybody either. Additionally, and this is one I like, they cannot be used in an army that includes a detachment from agents of the Emperor or agents of the War Master, such as Custodians or Sisters of Silence, or the various assassins. In campaigns where allegiance is considered something, you must declare an allegiance for them at the beginning of the campaign and keep that for all battles played. Now, I mean, if you end up betraying your side for some reason because of a fluff narrative reason that's agreed by the campaign runners, sure, cool. But they want you to stick to your side at the beginning of campaigns and stay through it the entire campaign. The next one's kind of a stickler. Black Shields do not get rights of war. They get oaths of vengeance and wrath. We'll talk about those in a minute. You also can only take, you do not only get, but you can take your warlord traits from the Black Shield warlord traits that are included in this book as well. And of course, Black Shields get their own reaction. Their advanced reaction is no lords, no masters. Made once a battle during the opponent's player's assault phase when an enemy unit that includes any model with Primarch, unique unit subtype, Master of the Legion, or has been selected as an army's warlord declares a charge targeting friendly units. If the charge is successful, then all models in the charged unit gain Fearless for the duration of that combat. Not that turn, but that whole combat. And any model in the unit that was charged that is in base-to-base contact or engaged in a challenge with any enemy model with character unit subtype gains plus attack, or if it is a unique, it gains 2 attacks for the duration, again, of that combat. So that's really a good way just to sit there and have a tar pit unit that is never going to go away. And as long as someone is still alive from that unit, they're sitting there, they're fearless, and other guys can just pile into that combat and bog other players, your army and their other army down in just a giant scrum right in the middle of the actual table. Warlord traits, like everywhere else, they get 3. You get Bloody Tyrant, Forgotten Hero, and Twisted Strategist. Bloody Tyrant gives you Fear 1, affects all friendly models as well as all enemy models. However, any friendly unit that's under the effect of the Fear 1 special rule and under the control of the player who has this trait be forced to fall back or become pinned. You can instead choose to kill a single model as a casualty. No saving throw, no damage mitigation. Doesn't matter if it has 2 wounds or not. It's just to remove it as a casualty. and then the unit does not fall back or become pinned. Instead, remains in place, remains locked in combat if it's in combat, and you get an additional reaction to the opponent's assault phase. So you can sit there and you've lost this combat by 9. You're not going to be able to make the leadership test. You roll, you get double 6s, and instead of running and getting cut down, you just kill Bob, the guy over there with the bolter, and there you go. You stuck around, and that's not only good once; it's good any time that the Warlord's unit has to deal with that. Number 2, Forgotten Hero. If during any player shooting phase, a model with this Warlord trait is allocated a wound, then all other friendly models, and it doesn't matter if it's saved or not, by the way, then all other friendly models in the unit get a bonus of +1 to weapon skill and strength until the end of the next player turn, in which that unit makes a successful charge or is successfully charged by an enemy unit. It's not cumulative, so don't think that you can sit there and stack up bonuses from getting more guys, having him soak up bolter fire. That one also gives you an extra reaction during the shooting phase. And then the one I think is really interesting is Twisted Strategist. At the start of a game turn, before the start of any player's movement phase, and it's any game turn, the Warlord with this trait hasn't been removed, then you can select one of the special rules listed below, and a single friendly unit does not have to be the Warlord traits, but it does not have to be the Warlord's unit, but you can select him. All models in that selected unit gain the selected special rule for the duration of that game turn. Each of these can only be used once per battle, but you get a Shrouded 6-up, or a Rampage 1, Counterattack 1, or Precision Shot 6+. So you get to use each one of those whenever you want at the start of any player's movement phase, and it goes for that whole game turn. So your opponent has top of turn 1 or top of turn 3. You can use one to give this unit that's holding this objective Shrouded 6+ if they don't have anything, as long as you haven't used it before. And you can use each one of the rules. Then beyond there, we have the Oaths of Vengeance and Wrath. So, first thing first. I'm going to read this because it's important. When selecting an attachment using the Legion of Astartes army list and Black Shields faction, up to 2 options can be selected from the following oaths. So you get 2. The effects of the chosen oaths apply to all models selected as part of that attachment that have the Legion of Astartes Black Shield special rule, excluding models with unique unit subtypes. No oath can be selected more than once. So this is kind of like the old dwarf runes rule, where you could put runes on a magical weapon, but you could put no more than 3. In this case, it's been more than 2, and you couldn't really double up very much. So, the next bit is the Oaths of Vengeance and Wrath define the very core of each Black Shield warband. Once decided, should not be changed from battle to battle in order to gain an advantage over specific opponents. As such, when creating an army roster for a Black Shields force to be used in a battle, the oath selected should be recorded before any opponents are decided and before the composition of an opponent's army is seen. So you take your oaths, and that's your oaths. You're not going to change it in the middle of an event. You're not going to change it in the middle of a campaign for this army, as long as they're fighting the same army in the same day or whatever. First one, Eternal Vendetta. And there's a lot of these, by the way, so I'm not going to read all of them. I'll ask someone else to tag in here in a minute. The oath must always define a single variant of the Legions of Astartes as this focus. This being like the Eternal Vendetta World Eaters or the Eternal Vendetta Blood Angels. This has to be decided when the detachment is selected before the battle begins. A unit that is comprised entirely of models with this oath gains a bonus of +1 on all to hit rolls from weapons with a melee type, targeting a unit that has any models with the variant of the Legions of Astartes that is the target of this oath. However, a unit that includes any models with this oath that begins the controlling player's assault phase within 12 inches of an enemy unit that includes the enemy that you're oathed against must charge the unit targeted for that enemy unit if possible. If there's more than one enemy unit with the variant of your targeted oath special rule that is the target of this within 12, then you can choose which one you're going to charge. A detachment with this oath may not be selected as part of an army that includes any models with the variant of Legions Astartes X. So if you're World Eaters and you have, or if you're Black Shields and you have Eternal Vendetta Blood Angels, you cannot be attached to a Blood Angel army. And you cannot, again, take this oath twice, but you can take this one twice, but you cannot take target Blood Angels. You could take Vendetta against Blood Angels and Vendetta against Ultramarines, but you cannot take it against the same Legion.
The next one is
thank you,
is
Ryan.
going to be a very common one.
Panoply of the old whatever.
Oath Panoply of Old X. Models with this oath gain access to any unique war gear options available to models with the Legions Astartes X special rule variant noted as part of this oath. This does not allow these models to take selected warlord traits, rights of war, console types, praetor upgrades, or other options available to models with that variant of the Legions Astartes X rule, and does not allow the detachment to include units restricted to detachments of that faction. But that does mean you get to take all the miniguns.
Yep.
Do you like assault cannons? I like assault cannons.
Yep. Next one, only in death does duty end. Whenever a unit composed of this oath takes a morale check for any reason, no dice are rolled, the check is automatically passed, and you take D3 wounds, which you can only have invulnerable saves against. No other saves, no damage mitigation. You're just not going to be moved, and you're going to take casualties by not being moved. So for people who keep suffering from Nemesis sniper rifles or a certain psychic power that makes you take a pinning test, Jack, you can sit there and take D3 wounds and still be able to act as normal. Brian, you want to take the next one?
Full Commissar.
Yep.
The next one after that is Oath in Eternity of War, a unit that includes any models with this oath which fails a morale check caused by casualties inflicted by an enemy shooting attack, does not fall back, but instead makes a consolidate move. Additionally, if such a unit makes a successful charge after suffering any casualties due to an enemy reaction triggered by that charge, then each wound inflicted by the reaction is counted towards a controlling player of the charging unit's score used to determine which side has won the resulting combat. That's pretty neat. However,
the tie-in there at the end of that kind of hurts a bit.
Yeah, however, at the end of any of the controlling player's turns after game turn 1, any unit that includes one or more models with this oath that is not locked in combat and was not part of a combat in that same player turn suffers a single wound, against which only invulnerable saves may be taken, but no other saving throws or damage mitigation rolls. These wounds being allocated by the controlling player.
Yeah, I like that one. It kind of gives the idea of people flowing forward as they're getting shot, just taking the casualties in the teeth and then firing back and then causing as many wounds as possible and getting right stuck into the hand-to-hand combat. I like that one. I think it's not quite as good as Only in Death Does Duty End, but it's not bad at all.
The next one I think is probably one of my favorites out of the list so far.
One. And I wonder, you don't even have to wonder where this one came from.
Go ahead and tell us about it, Jamie.
All right. Oath, the flesh is weak. All models with infantry or cavalry type unit in a detachment with this oath are instead counted as having autonomous unit type and gain the Field No Pain +5 special rule. In addition, during the contributing player shooting phase, that unit includes any models with this oath must attempt a shooting attack if there is an enemy within range, and must target the closest enemy unit possible that is within line of sight and is valid target for a shooting attack. If 2 or more targets are equally close, then the controlling player chooses which will be the target of the shooting attack. If no weapon in the attacking unit is capable of wounding or causing a glancing hit or penetrating hit to a potential target unit, then the target unit may be ignored if there's another potential target in range and line of sight of the attacking unit. Any model in the attachment of this any model in a detachment with this oath that has Psyker unit subtype loses the subtype and may not use psychic weapons or psychic powers. Any model in the detachment with this oath that has the transport subunit type also gains augmented transport bay special rule. You want me to?
I'll read it. A model with that rule, augmented transport bay, may only be embarked on by models that previously had the infantry unit type, but have had it replaced by the automata unit type with the flesh as we folk.
So basically,
it also increases its transport cap by 3.
So this turns Marines into AdMech, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. It's really good for the Iron Hands, the ones who are that Joe Kirkus does. They're the dead Marines. And Joe, hey, that'd be a great way of doing your Iron Hands with Black Shield, buddy. Yeah, the Keys of Hell. We did, however, skip the Spoils of Victory, which is one I like.
I missed that one.
I love this one. I love this one.
Okay, I did. I'm sorry.
It's all good. A unit that includes any models with this oath may not make sweeping advances. However, whenever such a unit would normally make one, it instead rolls a d6, and on a 4+, you get a +1 bonus point. So, if you're not going to be able to go because of whatever reason, not because you're heavy and not because you don't have the ability to chase something down like being cataphractic or something, but you just choose not to, hey, you might get an extra bonus point or an extra victory point. And I like that because it just feels like your guys have more control, and you're sitting there looting the dead. So kind of seems neat to me. And on the other side of the flesh is weak, taking away your psychic abilities, the Legacy of Nakia.
It's like the opposite.
it really is. Any model with this oath in character type becomes a Psyker. So your sergeants now gain Psyker, and you get a Warp Torrent Psyker weapon. You can also pay 25 extra points per model to get a 1 psychic discipline for those represented from those in the main book. At least 1 model selected as an HQ must be given Psyker type, and 2 models with character must also be given the Psyker type. And then you get you do not gain the Etheric Lightning Psychic weapon unless you have a special rule that would give him that. But you get the Warp Torrent weapon, which is Torrent, range 12, strength 5, AP 5, assault 2, deflagrate, and malignant force. Or if you fire it with malignant, range 12, strength 5, AP 3, assault 2, deflagrate, and again malignant force. Malignant force is any Psyker with the Warp Torrent weapon may choose to have the unit they're a part of suffer perils of the warp before making attacks with this weapon. If it's not chosen, then you use the regular torrent profile. If it is chosen, take your psychic perils of the warp test against the unit, and then fire with the malignant rule. And for each unsaved wound inflicted on the attacking model's unit due to perils of the warp triggered by the malignant force special rule, you get an extra shot. So if you lost 3 guys somehow with the because of your own perils of the warp, you get 3 extra shots.
No, that's 3 strength.
Yeah. Oh, it's shots and strength.
Oh yeah, it is assault. Oh yeah, yeah.
That's a little different. Kind of makes you think that maybe the Emperor's thing at Nikea was actually wisely done, because some of that psychic stuff is nonsense.
Well, I think they have. There was no way this wasn't being included because they have to give away for there to be, Black Shield Psychers
Oh yeah.
From everyone, 1,000 Suns, but everybody, right? There were cyclers from every legion that were turned away or went out on their own and ended up doing things. So, this had to be in here, but in some way or another.
There you go. So, who wants to do the broken helix? Because this is another one I think might really work for Joe, our friend.
I can take this one off, y'all.
Go ahead.
So, they have Oath of the Broken Helix. They lose the special rules: Fury of the Legion, Heart of the Legion, Spite of the Legion, and Inexorable. And instead, you gain either Clone or Aberrant. So the Clone rule, all models with a special rule do not also have character unit subtype and must reduce their leadership and initiative characteristics by 1 and gain a damage mitigation roll of 5+ against all wounds. It's a cloned resilience damage mitigation, doesn't stack with any other damage mitigation. That unit may not make reactions, but may also never be pinned. And so the other option is Aberrant. So all models with this special rule do not also have the character unit subtype reduce their leadership and ballistic skill characteristics by -1, but increase their strength by 1 permanently, and after making a successful charge, gain an additional +1 bonus to strength until the end of that turn. A unit that includes any models with a special rule that begins the assault phase within 12 inches of one or more enemy units must have a charge declared for it, although the controlling player may choose the target of this charge.
Yeah, so again, I think that would work really well to represent the Keys of Hell. Because you got the slightly slower, slightly stupider, but you still got the 5+ mitigation. And then you've got that kind of burning rage that all of them have, if that makes sense.
So wouldn't this work for Raven Guard, Black Shields?
Yeah, it would really work well to represent the their altered Marines that were messed up by the Alpha Legion and screwing with stuff. Well, I think it would work well for them and for the Iron Hands. Keys of Hell.
Well, and the Aberrant is anyone that's messing around too close to the demons or the warp, and all of a sudden you're mini Gal Vorback kind of, right? Not near as powerful, but you're kind of starting to go down that route, and so that gives you some options for a unit with having some cool modeling possibilities to make them look beefy and strong and be this Aberrant kind of not quite a demon rule, but starting to be demonized.
Yep. And one thing I like about this even more is actually up at the very beginning of this one, where it says the opposing player cannot achieve objectives for moving a unit that includes any models with that as casualties.
Oh yeah, sorry, I missed that one.
So if there's like a kill point mission that you're playing and your army has this, your opponent gets no kill points whatsoever for killing these guys. At all. Ever. So I think that's pretty neat. It's a good way to shut down that mission.
Yeah, very flavorful, lots of potential there.
Oh yeah, lots of possibilities there. John, I think this is one that you actually would really enjoy. So, in disgrace, all are equal. An attachment with this oath is not permitted to include any HQ choices, no compulsory HQ choices, and you do not get a warlord, but all models in the detachment with character unit type that are not apothecaries and not tech marines get +1 leadership and +1 wound, and you get to pick additional following characteristics that get a +1 as well, those being either weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, or initiative. And all models in the detachment with this oath that do not have character unit subtype suffer a penalty of 1 to their leadership. Apothecaries and tech marines do not get any bonus or negative, despite having character types. And I think that this is one that's really kind of neat, kind of awesome. John, you and I talked a while back about something, so go ahead and say your piece there, brother.
Yeah, I think this would be really cool for Thunder Warriors, because what you can do is, since they're kind of gene bulk freak shows, you could really take it to where the close combat wannabe guys are going to be really into the buffing their weapon skill, and then the shooty guys could be like atrophied, and they're the ones that put all their stuff into ballistic skill. Maybe you've got some really lithe kind of guys that are into initiative. So, yeah, you could really go nuts with the conversions on this army.
Yep, I think this is really, really neat. And yes, Thunder Warriors in this I think would be awesome. There's actually models done a couple of years ago on the Kickstarter by the Aus 30K guys.
I got those, and there's a bunch of different ones now all popping up all over Etsy and cults that are just begging to be used for this.
Exactly what I was thinking. I think this would be awesome.
I think that it also is just there's a lot of places in the lore where there's things where you have strike forces, that are off on their own and don't have a true leader that you can recreate as well too. So I get your idea, but I think this is also very flavorful for some other ideas for putting duplicating some forces that exist or the same ideas, the stuff that exists in the book.
Yeah, I agree.
Conversions are never pigeonholed. I mean, that's not the purpose of them.
And that's this is literally.
I like your idea. I see some other ideas out of it that I think are really cool too. So it's a neat idea.
Oh yeah, it's an army led by the sergeants because all the officers have been killed in attrition. So,
the sergeants started doing weird stuff.
Yeah, well,
that's
the sergeants for you.
That's the Ultramarines under Health that get separated off on their own.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it too.
Yeah, the guy that became the Mortifactors, where they started eating all their enemies to gain their knowledge, and they go into weird catatonic trances. That could be one way of doing those. The Kasabo Tezuka was doing the Heresy, so yeah, you could do a lot of really cool stuff with those.
Yeah, I'm really loving this oath. And then Brian, Pride is our armor, sir. Take that one away for us.
All right. Pride is our armor. Any Legion veteran squad in either a primary detachment or an allied detachment with this oath may be upgraded for 50 points per unit, gaining the line unit subtype in the Heart of the Legion and Fury of the Legion special rules. However, a detachment with this oath may not include any troop choices, and all troop slots are removed from the force organization chart for this detachment. As such, the detachment is no longer required to select any compulsory troop choices, but one existing elite slot for that detachment is now considered to be compulsory. Additionally, a detachment with this oath may include 2 additional elites choices. This applies to both detachments selected as a primary detachment and those selected as allied detachments. Now, before you guys go on about your Contempt or Dreadnought rage, this takes away a lot from your atypical Legion army. No longer having access to any support squads is a big deal. No longer having access to recon squads is a big deal. Veteran squads are not cheap, and you're adding a 50-point tax to make them scoring.
Yep, you're not wrong there.
Well, heavy support squads are still heavy, right? So
yes,
and I think you still could get seeker squads, correct? You just wouldn't be able to get recon squads.
In fast.
Yeah.
You can get anything that's not troop squads.
Right. I think. So when we were talking, I before on the side, I thought, and I still think to some extent, there's some potential to really tease out an army list using this abilities. I do think you're right. In most cases, you're probably going to be balanced out with everything else. I'm really starting to realize that this is a weapon skill 5 game, and weapon skill 4 units are just dying in it for the weapon skill 5 dudes. And so this really just throws that at another level, potentially, depending on how you build your list. So,
that's true. But one thing you have to think about in this one is The only way you're getting line with an army with this oath is by taking vets, because you don't get line anywhere else, and they're
overpriced vets at that.
They're heavily taxed. So it's going to lead to more smaller armies, model count wise, more elite armies model count wise. If you take this oath.
I mean, there's still dudes that don't care about line and just put out armies that are going to kill everyone on the table. And
I was going to say that sounds like a Duncan army. It sounds like a Duncan army where your whole goal is to just murder, death, kill everything.
You're right. It does.
But at the same time, I also think this is another one that allows some really cool army ideas and modeling ideas that people can put together and not cheese it. So, it just. I think that probably in most cases it's probably going to be okay, and you need to be putting an army on the table that deals with most of the things you're going to run across anyway. You're right. All of a sudden, instead of your 3 troops with your troop tax, you're putting 3 veteran squads of 5 on for your tax, and paying 50 points more per 5-man, and filling everything else out to be whatever else you want it to be. Maybe it's not a big deal, but it just seems like you could cheese it a little bit. But it's also
that's not cheesing it at all, Dan. You know how easy it is to kill 5 power armored Marines, maybe 1 with artificer armor?
Yeah.
Very, very easy.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm rolling the artificer armor.
Okay, that's also fair. One thing I like about this one, and I mean this, is these are representing like the veterans, the guys who, when the Primarchs took over their actual legions, they didn't like the Terran recruits who have been around for 100, 150, 200 years or whatever during the Crusade. And these are the guys that they sent off to go piss off into the Galactic Unknown and do whatever. Like the Raven Guard with Corax, the guys who ended up becoming the Carcharodons. I like that.
They are the warrant officers.
Yep, I really like that one. Next we have the Taint of the Xenos. Ooh.
Want me to read that one?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
So, any model in its attachment with this oath may exchange a plasma gun or Nemesis bolter for Xenos Deathlock at no additional cost and points. A combi bolter for a Xenos Deathlock for plus 5 points per model. A plasma pistol for a Xenos Doomlock at no additional cost and points, or a power weapon for a Xenos Halo Blade at no additional cost and points. A Legion Vigilator may exchange their Mastercrafted Nemesis Bolter for a Xenos Deathlock at no additional cost. So a Xenos Deathlock is 18 inches, 6'4", Assault 2, Deflagrate, Lethal Exposure. A Xenos Doomlock is 9 inches, 6'4", Pistol 2, Deflagrate, Lethal Exposure. And the Xenos Halo Blade is plus 3, AP 3, strength plus 3, model strength, melee 2-handed. So then Lethal Exposure, if a unit makes attacks with 1 or more weapons with its special rule as part of a shooting attack in any phase, including as part of a reaction, roll a d6. If the result of this roll is equal to or less than the number of weapons in a unit with the lethal exposure rule, the unit suffers a single wound with no saves or damage mitigation rolls allowed. This wound is allocated to any model in the unit by the controlling player. So it's wimpy gets hot, I guess, basically. Or not actually, no, you automatically get it. So, but So this
one that kind of sits funny with me. Other than the Xeno Halo Blade, I feel like these weapons are worse than regular Volkites.
Well, I think that's what the point is supposed to be. It's like they're out like on the far reaches of the known universe, and they're basically doing whatever they can to survive, and like they can't resupply bolter rounds or charge packs for Volkites, so
this is the Rogue Trader Space Marine with Shuriken Catapult, right? This is This is entirely meant to be something that is about cool modeling and thematic units that are messing around with Xenos more than it is anything to do with anything else. The weapons. I mean, Strength 6 is nice, right? There's a lot of times where just wounding a whole bunch of wounds on dudes is really helpful. Maybe it's not as good as a plasma gun or a Nemesis bolter, but if you want to build around a theme where your dudes are interacting with Eldar or whatever Xenos you want to, and you want to model up some cool, freaky, Xenos weapons and some funky big two-handed blades on some dudes and throw a unit of them out there with your black shields, that's the way to do it. It's cool. I think it's got a lot of possibility, right? Everything isn't going to be a min-max good unit.
No. I think it's different in the way you look at it. I think it's interesting.
I mean, like, the two armies that I would think this would go well for are, like, post-Heresy Raven Guard, which would be the Carcharodons, because that's basically what they did. They just begged, borrowed, stole, or whatever they could, weapon-wise, to survive.
But this isn't with the beg, borrow, or stole. This is the band stuff that the mechanic and manipulator said.
Hold on. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
The other one would be the Crusade against the Night Lords. Like, a lot of the Dark Angels, they were shipped out to, like, the very far rims of the galaxy by Horus, interacting with a lot of the Xenos prior to, like, the Theramis Crusade with the Night Lords. So that would be kind of like in line with, and they already use some pretty messed up weapons as it is anyways from the Emperor. So
we know that what are they, the mortals, the Cabal tried to approach Alpha Legion, right? Maybe there's some Alpha Legion that get tied up with the Cabal, even though the main Legion turns them down, and so they end up with Xenos weapons because they're putzing around with some Eldar or whichever Xenos you want, or Dark Eldar, whatever, right? There's.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it can be very fluffy.
You want to be real crazy? You combine this
with the next one.
Not with the next one. With the Apate, the guy that forces you to take militia troops, and your militia are Kroot.
Oh, now that's interesting. Like an army of guys who are
just picking up random Xenos to send into the slave pits to go clear out minefields.
Man, that's an interesting concept of an army. Man, that could be cool.
Yeah, if I hadn't already done Cobra, there's a whole bunch of cool ideas I have.
Cool. Well, what about the next one? John, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, if we're going to talk crap weapons, let's go to the bottom of the barrel.
Okay.
The weapons of desperation. Do you like Necromunda? Do you have a lot of leftover crap from Necromunda? All models in the detachment with this oath and the infantry unit type must exchange any bolters and bolt pistols they have for one of the following weapons. Exchanging weapons on a 1-for-1 basis. Auto rifle, stub carbine, shotgun, normal shotgun, not a Stardate shotgun, last gun, last carbine, last pistol, or auto pistol.
So it's basically like us at the range day.
Yeah, just pull out whatever you've got. When exchanging weapons, each exchange may be for a different weapon, and squads and models do not have to receive the same weapon when making multiple exchanges. When exchanging weapons for a unit of more than one model, for each 3 models in the unit, one model may exchange their bolter for a heavy stubber instead of one of the options listed above, and any models with the independent character special rule may also get a heavy stubber.
Oh, yeah.
You also get what's called Desperate Measures special rule. And so they list all the stats of the weapons. I'm not going to read them all. And there's...
we know
the exchange takes place after you swap out things, so you can buy... What is that? So however, a model with an oath that has been given a bayonet or chain bayonet may not then exchange it. Okay, so you can still seed in a couple chain bayonets on bolters if you want, and then have a bunch of guys with last pistols, auto pistols, shotguns, and heavy stubbers. But Desperate Measures is A model with this special rule treats all weapons from the Armory of Desperation that have the Assault X as if it were Pistol X, and weapons that have Heavy X as if they were Assault X. So heavy stubbers become assault stubbers. Stub carbines, which are assault weapons, become pistol carbines. So you are just destroying the table with the amount of dice you're going to be rolling.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, double fisting and...
Oh, and anything that had rapid fire becomes pistol too.
Yeah.
So you could literally craft a Marine holding 2 auto rifles and just screaming offenses at the opponent, spraying and praying with pistol, basically 4 on auto rifles. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And
The idea is
then,
just so silly.
well, you can also have a heavy stubber and an auto pistol. I mean, and a auto rifle, right? For the dudes that can do the heavy stubbers, so you're basically just.
So you got to swap the bolter
pistol
for one or the other. So you can take double pistols, or you can take, if you take auto rifle, stub carbine, shotgun, last carbine, pistol, or auto pistol, those can be doubled. So you could have 2 stub carbines, which are each assault 3, which become pistol 3. So each dude is rolling 6 dice. I mean, it's still strength 3, which sucks, but that's a lot of dice for a 10-man Marine squad.
I mean,
and then you throw in the heavy stubbers, or I guess better range. I would just keep the crap tons of dice.
Yeah, I would just keep the stub carbines because it seems funny. There is an old story I read on, I can't remember where. I think it was Sup DG. Of it was how Karn is one of the really good guys, with the Red Rivers guardsman unit, trader guardsman unit that he's attached to somehow. And Karn got hold of a last gun, and he was like, "Oh, this is hilarious!" And he broke off the trigger guard, and he's just going wee, and then shooting people with a last gun. And that's literally the image I have stuck in my mind: is Marines going, "Oh wow, this is fun," and just dumping rounds of fire downrange for no reason.
Yeah.
Which, if it was like a las gun, I mean, it literally in a Marine's hand would be like a submachine gun or a pistol, anyways.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Man, I really like that idea. I really like everything from all the Black Shield options, because they just seem to have so many different possibilities tied to them.
They're very fluffy full. I mean,
they are. I mean, you can create all manner of possible modeling opportunities for yourself, possible gaming opportunities, fun things. I don't think any of them are truly overpowered. When you're taking 2 for your army and you're making something that can be like a combination of the clone ones and the augmetics, I think that could be kind of neat, to create the Keys of Hell, as I mentioned earlier. There's just so much different variety here. It could be all kinds of fun for you to make and play with. And I think this is exactly what we need right now for Black Shield. What's next? Looks like Solar Rocks to me, sir.
All right. So, yeah, Solar Rocks got a few different things. First off is the Solar Rocks Legionis Auxilia. So if you take the Marine Overseer, which is a new console upgrade, costs plus 25 points. When you buy this guy, you can still take a retinue, but you also get access to swapping his chainsword for Power Maul and a new weapon called a Power Lash. Power Lash is Strength 3, AP 3, Melee, Shred, Reach 1, so he's getting a better initiative. He can't take a bike, jet bike, or jump pack. But he does get access to the Overseer's Retinue. And this is, you can take a tertio of 1 to 3 Solar Rocks rifle sections or 1 to 3 militia squads in accordance with the strength and number special rule, which we'll get to, as part of the same force org chart as this model. And then any Solar Auxilia rifle sections included through this use gain Legionis Auxilia X, or X is the army that you're with. And all models in this tertio selected of Overseer's Retinue. So basically he becomes part of the tertio, and then he can react as such. And remember, if you play Solar Aux or have played against Solar Aux, you know that the tertios can react as part of themselves. So if you shoot someone, let's say you shoot Tertio Squad 1, but Squads 2 and 3 that are part of the same tertio within 3 inches, they can all 3 shoot back at you. And so this would allow you to put this Marine in there, buff up the leadership of these squads, which is really helpful because obviously they run away a lot, as well as whilst he's part of the unit, any wounds may not be allocated to this guy. Additionally, a model with Master Auxilia special rules considered to have the same variant of Legionis Astartes as the squad that they have joined, or Legionis Auxilia, pardon. There are a Legionis Auxilia for every Legion, obviously. I don't necessarily think that we want to go through and read all 20, but I was going to touch on specifically. Yeah, to give you an example, the Ultramarine one is when a unit containing one or more models with the Legionis Astartes Ultramarine special rule declares a charge against an enemy unit that has taken a casualty as a result of a shooting attack made by the Auxilia unit, the charged unit, their reactions are done as snapshots. So these are completely different than your usual Legion traits and things like that. So it allows you to completely change up how you want to do this. And again, going back to the Black Shield discussion, you can then seed these into other units, or you can take them as part of things. You could take them as part of Shattered Legions and drive Iron Warrior slave carts forward.
Yep.
You just can't buy any transports for them or things like that. And the sad part is this is only for the auxiliary units. The militia don't really get any bonuses because all of their bonuses are tied to the warlord in that army. You just get a lot more bodies.
Yep. And it's important, I think, to note that this is not stuff that is just for Black Shields. This stuff is for regular, everybody, Legions of Astartes.
Yep.
So, and the one that I've seen that I like a lot is the Alpha Legion one. Because making your enemy have to shoot the Solar Aux instead of the Marines because they're there as a diversion, I think is just hilarious.
Yeah, the other thing that the Solar Aux get is there's a new cohort doctrine called Reconnaissance Patterned Cohorts. And so this allows you to take the new Light Sentinels as troop choices, as compulsory troop choices as well. And then all the ones that are selected as compulsory troop choices gain line. Velataris Assault Squadrons in this detachment gain outflank. And then the Atheon Heavy Sentinel Squadrons can now add 4 extra units instead of 2 extra units. So you can take 5 of them in a heavy support slot instead of 3. The limitations, though, is you can't take more than a single Auxilia Armored Tertio, and you can't take more than a single Artillery Tertio. No one took those. So that's not really a limit. The only real limit is the fact that I still don't think 5 Heavy Sentinels matches up to 3 Russes. So there's a lot of give and take, and there's really no limit on Russes in this. So you could just have an army of Sentinels and Russes if you really wanted to.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, that... different.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about it, let's see what it does. So it's 50 points for a Hermes Light Sentinel. Their movement 10, weapon skill, ballistic skill 3, strength and toughness 5, only 2 wounds, initiative 3, 1 attack, leadership 7, and a 4-up save. Now they're cavalry, which means they can't go in ZM. And that also means they're not really slowed by terrain. They come with a multi-laser that you can swap out for a special grenade launcher. You can take them in squads of 5. And if they choose to run, they gain Shrouded 5 up, which is actually pretty good. The downside is you're not getting the shots off. The grenade launcher, you can either shoot at strength 4, AP 5 with a 3-inch blast and pinning, or you can shoot at strength 6, AP 4 with 2 shots, direct. Then the Hermes Veletarius is 65 points. Movement 8, weapon skill and ballistic skill 4, strength and toughness 5, 2 wounds, initiative 3, 1 attack, leadership 7, 3 up save again, and 3 up save this time. You can take up to 5 of these. Every extra sentinel only costs 24 points. They can swap. They come with a Voltite Caliver, but they can swap that for a Heavy Flamer. These ones you swap out for a Veletarius squad, which is the Axe or Volkite squad in the normal auxilia list in the Tertio. I think that's going to be kind of interesting to take in that instance. If they have a Volkite Caliver, they get a 3-ups. If an Incurious Sentinel has 1 Volkite Caliver, in addition, it confers a 3 of armor save. Yeah, that's what it has. Okay. So yeah, I don't. Something tells me that these aren't going to be terrible as the heavy ones, in my opinion. I think these are going to be pretty good. I think the biggest limiting factor on these is probably going to be price, because I don't see them putting more than 2 or 3 in a box.
Yeah, that definitely can be a concern.
Unless
Well,
they're
how
about
many
the
are
size of those.
how many are in the heavy? Are there only 2 in a box, or is it 1?
1 in a heavy box.
And it's like 2 per squad?
It's 1 to 3 per squad for the heavies. These are 2 base up to 6 total.
Yeah.
I could see them packaging them 3 per box, like the Cador Necromundus walkers, because these are
Well, like
going to be
jet bike.
fairly small. If you look at the pictures of them, yeah, they're almost jet bikes, basically.
Well, I mean, the jet bikes are what, 3 for 65? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's not too bad if that's really what they are.
Yeah. And then the heavy sentinel really hasn't changed at all that I saw.
Yeah, except it doesn't have the grenade harness.
That was only in the box set. That wasn't in the PDF.
Okay.
There was a typo in the handout that came with the early release box. That was all the stuff together. And so yeah, it said swap the multi-laser for a grenade harness for some reason, which I think that they meant to swap that for autocannon or melt the lance or something. So yeah, that was weird. But the PDF that we read a couple episodes ago, it's exactly the same as that, as far as I can see.
Okay.
And then the only then we got the Life Ward section. So this is a retinue squad for your
Commander?
Yeah, I was trying to find a specific name, but it doesn't really list it. So this is a squad of between 2 and 10 guardsmen, basically. They come with 3+ saves base, which is nice. This is basically the only way to get that in an army. Otherwise, you're usually relying on void shields, which a lot of the axe units have. You really can't. You can upgrade these guys a lot in different ways. So they can take blast pistols, needle pistols, hand flamers, plasma pistols. But they can't really take any special weapons. 2 of them can take thunder hammers for 15 points apiece, which is a little pricey. And then there's different Vexillas. So, I don't know, to me, this squad is kind of meh. It's, like I said earlier, it doesn't really fill a lot of holes that I saw in the army before, apart from needing a retinue squad for your commander.
I obviously I don't play Solar Rocks, so I don't have a big dog in this fight, but they seem kind of interesting, but not really all that interesting, if that makes sense.
So, Don,
Yeah,
in your
you have
army
to-
would be CGs.
You have to pay so many points for power weapons and things like that. And these guys are basically just T3 Marines. They're weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4.
Well, they all have a 5-up invulnerable save as well, because they all have refractor fields.
Yeah, and a 3-up and 2 wounds. But they're still
Yeah.
going to be being doubled out by a lot of things. There is no real feel no pain in the militia list other than the medic that only gives them a 6-up, which is kind of a chintzy crap.
Yeah, I mean, they're interesting. Maybe if people want to sit there and do that.
I think the biggest problem with Ox that I've seen, especially at Adepticon, was that they really don't have a lot of answers to things that come in the game generally, like night fight or a lot of deep striking or outflanking and things like that. They are the only place I saw that a lot of augury scanners was on specifically like command tanks, if you want to spend that points that way, or on some of the command tertios, but then you don't get the response on some of the squads. So you're not going to be able to benefit from a lot of the things that normal Space Marines can with a lot of their changes.
Yeah. Do we want to hit the special characters and the new unit type tonight? You just kind of roll through and finish it all up tonight. Jack, what are your thoughts?
I'm good with that.
We got 2 new units to cover still.
Then let's do it. You want me to take Horus Aximent?
Yeah.
I think you want to take Horus Aximent.
I do. So Horus Aximent, Little Horus, captain of the 5th Company, 170 points. He's a praetor with leadership 9. I don't know why he has leadership 9. I mean, he's the captain of the 5th Company. He's a member of the Mournival. He's in essence the 3rd in command at this point of the Sons of Horus. But he's leadership 9. You know what? That's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm also not going to touch on his warlord trait, only really mattering that it's if he dies and isn't removed as a casualty, he remains in play, gets D3 wounds back as long as he's not killed by instant death. I'm not going to touch on his stats because other than leadership 10 not being there, he's regular praetor stats. If you're fighting an army with Garviel Loken in it, he's got the hunted rule or haunted rule, where if you kill Garviel Loken in a combat with him, where Horus Aximon's there, you get an extra bonus victory point, and if Garviel Loken is killed by Horus Aximon, you get 2 bonus victory points if he's killed in a challenge with Aximon. Mornital is +1 strength, AP2, murderous strike, 5 up. Mastercrafted Paragon Blade. So, a little bit better than most Paragon Blades in some ways. And he's got a shield, so he does not get a second attack. He does have an Iron Halo, but the shield itself gives him a 5-up invulnerable save. And each time a successful invulnerable save is made for a model with a combat shield against a melee attack, the unit that made that attack suffers a single strength 4 AP- hit. And then it says you don't get bonus attacks. Invulnerable saves granted by the shield do not stack with other invulnerable saves, so you can't roll a 4-up, then a 5-up, but can benefit from rules like Cyber Familiar that he can't get, that increase saves. If you have 2 invulnerable saves, you must choose which one to use. So you're obviously going to likely take the 4-up Iron Halo, so the Casket Shield is mostly useless. 170 points. Leadership 9. He got a Bane Strike Bolter, so yay, I guess.
Okay.
I like the model. Like I said, I'm going to buy the model. I'm going to play him a couple times, but I don't think he'll be my main commander. I'll probably go with continue using my generic Praetor.
Hey, Duncan.
Yeah.
He gets -1 leadership just as a stat punishment because his face was peeled off.
I mean,
that's why he's lead 9.
I mean, that's a fair statement. I mean, you lose your face, you're probably going to be, and you're haunted by the effects of Garviel Loken. I could see that, affecting your leadership capabilities. Sure, we'll go with that. And obviously, he's for Sons of Horus. And then we have another Sons of Horus guy with Tybalt Mar. Again, standard Praetor stat line, except that he has leadership 10, whereas Little Horus doesn't. He's got Iron Halo, he's got the Culling Blade, Bane Strike Bolter, and he has a bolt pistol, while Little Horus didn't have one of those. Sucks for Little Horus. But he gets Hatred of the Shattered Legions. So he's the guy you really want to throw out there against them if you're playing him, or you're playing against them. His Warlord trait is by the Hunter's Moon. Means that he can conduct once at the end of your controlling movement phase, you can conduct a shock assault. When he does so, each enemy unit within 12 inches of him must take a pinning test. And his weapon is called the Culling Blade, which is Strength User, AP2, Fleshbane, Murderous Strike 6 up. So it kind of a Paragon blade. Kind of not, but it's not a specialist weapon, so you're gonna get that extra attack from that bolt pistol, and you're gonna wound dudes on a 2-up anyway. And yeah, it's AP2 Fleshbane. Throw him against Contemptors.
Yeah.
And watch him go to town. And then watch him get stepped on by a Contemptor. Who wants to take Hibukan? Nobody? Bueller?
Bueller.
All right, fine. I'll take Hibukan. The Outcast Khan, Hibukan.
Sorry, I was trying to find out
Mason.
who he was.
Oh, okay. Well, for one thing, he's the guy who cut off X-Men's face. 165 points. He's the generic Praetor stat line, except he's down a wound. I'm not really sure on that one. He's only got 2 as opposed to other Praetors having 3. The strength, toughness, etc., and he's down a leadership point. And he doesn't have an Iron Halo. He has a Refractor Field. So there we go. He's got Feel No Pain 5-up base, and his Warlord trait is actually really interesting. Seeker of Atonement. If he's your Warlord, then he and any unit he joins gain Rampage 2. In addition, if he's not been removed as a casualty, an army with him makes an additional reaction during the opposing player's movement phase. But if he has been removed as a casualty, an army with Hibukan as its warlord may make an additional reaction during the opposing player's assault phase. So he kind of wants to get killed, and you kind of easily let him do so.
Well, I mean, he's like the leader of the Saigar Mazin or whatever. So
yeah, he's the one who wants. He's the one who wants to die.
Yeah, that's
so,
like their whole deal.
Yeah, and he has the Karash rule from the White Scars, and here's where this gets funny. He's stubborn, right? But he's also got the Shattered Legion, so he's one of those you can actually include in Shattered Legion. Including models representing the White Scars Legion. When you do so, replace his White Scars rule with the Legion's Astartes Shattered Legion rule. And this is an exception. So he is literally a character who you can throw in there from the White Scars who violates the no unique rules, or no unique units rule. His weapon is the Breath of the Storm, +2 strength, AP3, two-handed, melee, Southern Strike 1, Reaching 4-up, Murderous Strike 6. Yeah, he's also got a new model we've touched on. Again, I like the model; it's kind of interesting.
The artwork for him is kind of weird.
Yeah. I'm not certain on him being one I would include if I was playing White Scars. But if I was going full up into the Saigar Mazon, I probably would, just because it'd be cool and thematic. So,
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, there you go. Then we've got Shadrach Medusan. Someone else take over on that guy, please. Brian.
Sadric Mardusan, war leader of the Iron Hands, so he has the middle fingers. Master to Shadow Legions. Lord of the word that I'm never going to pronounce, clan. See here. Special stuff with him, 175 points. Weapon and BS skill, both 5. Leadership 10, initiative 5. Has his normal Iron Hand goodness. A whole load of special rules like Shattered 10th. See here, Battle Hardened, Loyalist, Warlord trait, Rise the Storm. See here, Rise the Storm. Once per battle, start any turn where this guy controlling player active, the special rule may be activated for a duration of the turn, which is special rule activated all models in the same department as Sarduc Medusa with the Legion Astarte Iron Hands or Shattered Legion special rule gain Fears Charge 1 Hatred Traitor special rules. and he gets to do an additional reaction in the movement phase. See here, you can include him in Shattered Legions, representing Iron Hands. A lot of rules for that. He has Storm's Wrath, which is a Storm Boater. 24 Strength 4, AP 5, Rapid Fire, Mastercraft, and Rending plus 6. 6+, okay. And then Albion Power Gladius, plus 1 Strength, AP 3, Melee, Mastercrafted, Breaching on a 5-up. So he is a thing.
He's also got a servo arm, which we have talked about on his model being cool and used for other dudes.
He is tucked up, but I don't know. I'm not an Iron Hands player. That fall underneath all the Iron Hand stuff was a servo arm, and probably the lack of real fingers.
Yeah, that's fair. And he's the guy who ended up getting murdered by Tybalt Mar, so I'm cool with it. It's nice that he got a model. It's nice that he has rules. That makes me happy.
Okay. I'm happy you're happy.
The model's pretty cool.
The model is cool.
It is. And we have Endrin Har, the rejected World Eater Legionnaire, became a commander. He's 100% Black Shields, Master of the Legion, 165 points, weapon skill 6, 4s, toughness 5, leadership 10, Iron Halo. He's got his Archaeotech pistol, and then he's got his I'm going to punch your head off with his power gauntlet, and he's got Battle Hardened 1, so he actually counts as technically toughness 6 for instant death. And he's got Hatred World Eaters. His warlord trait is Fangs of the Emperor. If he's your warlord, you can choose 3 units in the infantry unit type that don't have bulky to gain scout, which is nice. I like that. You also get an additional reaction in the assault phase. You get his power gauntlet, which is strength times 2, AP 2, melee, unwieldy, specialist weapon, brutal 2, charged attacks. And charged attacks is each time he makes attacks with this weapon, he can make charged attacks. If he does so, halve the total number of attacks he makes, rounding up, and change his strength characteristic of this weapon to ×3. So he becomes a strength 12 punching bag. And he would then make 2 attacks or 3 on the charge. Yeah, that's strength 12 is nothing to laugh at when it's coming from weapon skill 6 Praetor.
He doesn't turn it up to 11. He turns it to 12.
Yeah, he goes to 12. And the model is obviously something really cool.
Yeah. I will say that most of these HQ models that they have shown or have made or whatever
are nice.
They've been very nice.
I agree. And then we have the Opta, or Opte, or however you want to do it.
Okay. Opte.
John, I'll let you take over on this one because I'm still I got a complaint on it.
Yeah, you're not the only one. So this is a completely new unit for Space Marines. I thought it would be better as a console choice upgrade. But for 40 points, you get a weapon skill 5 plus 6 skill 4, strength and toughness 4, 2 wound, I4, 2 attack, leadership 9, 3 up save, Marine. And he comes with a bolt pistol, chainsword, drag and crack grenades. Counts as a character. Notice there is a specific keyword missing there, but we'll get to that in a little bit. He can take a bolter, normal combi weapons, a Volkite, charger, a Stardy shotgun, or Nemesis bolter. And then he can also swap out his bolt pistol for all the normal things. The one that's really weird is a Thunderhammer at an extra 30 points. He can also grab a boarding shield. He can take Twin Lightning Claws. If he takes Twin Lightning Claws, he can't take a combat bike or jet bike, but he can take a jump pack, combat bike, or jet bike normally. He can also upgrade to an Artificer armor, and he can have melt the bombs. What he basically does is he's forced to attach to a unit And it says a unit that contains one or more models with this special rule automatically passes leadership tests made to regroup. Additionally, a unit containing one or more models with the special rule which has regrouped this turn suffers no restrictions on its ability to charge or make shooting attacks due to have regrouped in the same turn.
All right, John. Your thoughts?
I think he's really pricey for what he does, and I think what he does is help you lose less and not win more. And I think that that's a problem.
I don't think this should have been an HQ choice.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think this should have been an Elite's choice. And I think it should have been like the Tech Marines and Apothecaries, and that you can buy multiple of
Kind of like
them.
a super sergeant upgrade or something like that.
Yep.
He doesn't have come with an invulnerable save base unless you buy him the boarding shield or buy him a combat shield.
Yep.
I just see him as basically a super sergeant. Or as Jack has said, call him an Astartes lieutenant.
Because that's what he is.
Yeah, he's so expensive for what he does. Like, I don't get it.
I could see throwing him into like a veteran squad to give them a leader if you needed to. But he's
thinking
not all that great.
Hit and run. If you wanted to bolster the hit and run a little bit off of the jet bike squads.
Maybe.
But
he's an HQ slot. That's the problem. Yeah. So you're taking this guy on his own over another Centurion type. And I don't see that happening very much. And he doesn't have sorry, he does have independent character. I thought I missed that.
Well, he doesn't have independent character. He's just he does. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's under special rules, not
you and I missed the exact same thing. I thought he was literally something that had to be attached to a unit, like the command squad being attached to your Praetor or whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this guy has potential if he's part of the Covenant, but not with him. With him not being part of the Covenant, I don't think he's going to be seeing that much table time. It's a neat idea, though.
Yeah, I could see if you, let's say those Black Shields, that one where you can't take leadership buffs.
Yeah.
But you can buy HQ characters. Like, this guy would be, they're like kind of like crappy vigilators or something. If you just wanted to buy them the Nemesis Bolter, or buy them the Astartes shotgun, and that way you're forcing the initiative drop.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm reaching for things to make them okay instead of like, man, he's really going to fill this hole in my army.
Yes, that's exactly the way I'm seeing him. I was hoping he was going to be. I really was hoping that this was going to be like I said, a Covenant earlier with an Elite's choice, because that way you could use it to represent like named sergeants. Like, throw him into the unit with your tactical Marines, and he's the attached sergeant who's really their leader, not the actual sergeant model that's around with him.
Like the gunny.
Yeah, like Garviel Loken in the first 3 books in the series, where he's got his best buddy who's the sergeant and who's basically his lieutenant for his company. That would be how I would see this guy represented, but as literally not as a HQ choice, but as just a super sergeant. And I think this option really misses the mark on that.
Yep.
And then we got the command squad. This rounds it out for everything. John, take it away, brother.
Yeah, I really like this command squad. So you start off with 4 Legionnaires. You can buy a Rhino, Drop Pod, Termite as dedicated, as long as you're not too big. This one specifically allows you to attach it to an Opte or Centurion model. And if you do that, it's obviously considered a command squad or retinue. You can buy an additional 5 models, so you're going up to 9. You take a Nuncio Vox, Vexilla, or a company standard, which we'll get to in a second. An augury scanner. Anybody can take chain bays or normal bayonets. Everyone can swap to Astartes shotguns or Nemesis bolters or twin lightning claws or Volkite serpentas and power weapons and charm ball. Like, there's a ton of options for this squad, and then 2 of them can take special weapons: flamers, melta guns, plasma guns, grav guns.
These guys with a Praetor popping out of a termite. That
You can't have them attached to a Praetor.
okay.
Yeah, so they're specifically for it's a company command squad instead of a Praetor command squad. So
Okay.
it's like their lower rank commands, but their company standard, which they get special, that says that anyone with the same variant of Legionis Astartes X within 6 inches of a frontal model within this is considered to be leadership 9 when resolving morale and pinning checks, but not psychic checks. In addition, this unit, anyone that's in the unit with the company standard is considered to be line. So, yeah, I really like this. Like, you could build.
You can't throw them on in jetpacks, and you can't put them on bikes.
Right,
But you can attach them to Optes or any Centurion. So this, to me, feels like a way to get extra command squads with. So you take your Praetor with his guys, and then you take your Chaplain with a squad of these guys, and then you take a squad, or you take another, a Champion, and you throw a squad of these guys with him. And then you have 3 banners that all have that line and those additional leadership bonuses spread out there.
Yeah. But you don't just have to do that. Like, you could build a Nemesis, like a complete sniper command squad that just sits at the back and snipes people, but also has line. Or throw a couple shotguns into those squads that are running up street. Like, this is really brings in a lot of cool conversions. Like, we were talking last time about the what is the destroyer guy, his command squad.
Yep.
This is one that's a little, in my opinion, a little different that you could build for some of the other characters that you can take this way. So, yeah, there's a lot of cool conversions ideas in this.
Yeah, I actually see myself building and using these guys as opposed to, like, maybe even with my Sons of Horus, as opposed to using or just throwing a squad of Reavers in with my Chaplain. I can see myself using these guys instead. Kind of a fan. One thing I think also needs to be noted, you can't give them an invulnerable save.
Was there no shields?
Nope. No shields. No combat shields even.
Well, yeah, that's what I was looking in the mods that they could take.
Yep. Nothing.
Yep. No shields.
Yeah. I like this unit. I really do. I think this unit is a win.
Yep. I'm going to have to build a few of them.
Yep. I'm the same way. But I think that brings us to the end of the book, guys. Other than the artwork, which is really nice, there's a lot of nice pictures of models.
Yep.
But it's
This is a long one, but we definitely covered the whole book.
Yep. My personal opinion on this, 100%, this book, even after our talk about it, I'm solid with an A- at this point.
I'll give it a B plus.
That's fair. That's fair. Jack, do you like it better or worse or about the same as what we were talking about earlier?
The same. I had my hopes really high.
Yeah, I think I'm with. I didn't necessarily have my hopes really high, but I'm going to say I'm a little worried with how some of the previous FAQs have changed books after they've come out.
That's fair.
But at the same time, the Solar Ox things, the Life Ward squad really doesn't do much apart from having a really expensive squad of okay combat guys. The Opte is meh, as we've discussed. The Overseer is interesting if you want to go that route.
Yeah,
I think it's a good
different.
Like we said with the Opte, we were looking for ways to try to make him okay, not ways to make him fit in our armies. Like we were coming up with all these cool ideas off the Black Shields and off the Solar Ox and stuff like that. We were coming up with all these neat ideas on ways to build armies. And then we got to the Marine units and we just went, yeah, you can kind of do this.
Yeah. I think that's the big negative for the Opte. I think out of everything in this book, the only negative I see, really, is the Opte.
Yeah. The
heavy
Scout Sentinels will be... Yeah, the Heavy Sentinel.
Heavy
The
Sentinel.
Scout Sentinels will be interesting. Like I said, I bought stuff to try those out, so I'll try to give a review in a few months.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, unless there's any objections, gentlemen, at this point, I think we're done for the night. Hearing no objections, I want to thank all you listeners for hanging out with us and joining us tonight on this 77th episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. One thing I would like to do is a shout out before we do anything else. Remember, we are still running the contest for April regarding the creation of fluff for your army, your unit, or your HQ commander that we are doing in our Discord and in our Facebook, that we are giving away a table's worth of painted terrain for from our friends over at Death Ray Designs. The terrain itself is in John's possession, and he will be painting that entire table's worth of terrain for you if you are the winner of the contest. And that will be hosted on our Discord and our Facebook. Also, we do have our website, heresypodcast.com, if anyone's wanting any of the shirts, or you can reach us at show@heresypodcast.com for anyone who wants any of the posters we've had previously. And again, those proceeds are still going to John. But at this point, thank you again for joining us on this, the 77th episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. As always, I've been Duncan. Tonight I've been joined by my friends
Ryan.
Dan.
Jack.
Jamie.
And John. And Dan stepped out, so I stepped in.
That's fair. Thank you for that. Good night, all.
Later.
Like that.
Night.